Before we begin the Levaya, we ask for those that have a cell phone or pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode.
Here to pay kavod achron to my shviga. First, I want to thank everybody for coming on short notice. The way the Eibishter decided this should come out, make the Levaya tonight so that there could be another Levaya tomorrow in New York. The first maspid will be Rabbi Binyamin Aaron Newman, the Maradasra of the Adas, who's a very close yedid to my Shver and to my Shviga, and kept up with her throughout all these years of her illness and her not being out in shul and so on. And I asked him to say the Behesped.
We're here to give kavod achron to Rebbetzin Twersky, Isha Taiva Bas Baruch Aleh Shalom, and Isha Chashuva Ma'id. If I had to think of one thing that would describe her whole essence, I believe it's Messiah. Her desire to live al pi the Messiah, her desire to give it over to Messiah, to her children, to Messiah, to all of the people in their kahila, to the community and whoever that she came in contact with. You felt that she was with the generation, but you felt you were with the generation behind from yesteryear. And she was very successful because it was part of her essence and part of her fiber. She was a regal woman, called Kavuda Basmela Panima, very dignified in all her dealings with everybody. And therefore she was zeichet to be mashpia on so many people, to be able to understand what the value of Messiah is. I had the schus for a number of years to visit Rabbi Twersky, Zechron Levracha, together with the Rebbetzin, Aleh Shalom. And I would go there Friday nights with my children. It was a lesson for them to see what it means, greatness, to see refinement. It was a special treat when we would come into the house. Rabbi Twersky would always ask for Dvar Torah and share a Dvar Torah. And Rebbetzin Twersky, Aleh Shalom, would always ask about the family and entertain the children. It was a very special experience. Shlomo Melech says in Kehelis, Toiv Shem Mishem Toiv, V'yayim HaMaves Miyayim Hivoldai. Toiv Shem Mishem Toiv. A name is better than even good oil, aromatic oil. How is it better? Why is a Shem better than a Shem and Toiv? They're equal in the sense the Meforshim say that just like when you have oil with other liquids, the oils always rises to the top. So to a person with a Shem Toiv is an individual that rises to the top, that surpasses other people, shows the way for other people to behave and conduct themselves. But Toiv Shem Mishem and Toiv. A Shem is better than Shem and Toiv. The Meforshim explained because when you have oil mixed together with other liquids, even though the oil rises to the top, but the oil carries the fragrance or not fragrance that the other mashkim have. But a human being has the ability to reach higher heights and not be affected by the lower people and just be there as a role model, to be there as a mashpia. and that was Rebbetzin Twersky Alei Shalom. She was able to mashpia on others. Other people's narishkeiten didn't affect her. It didn't change her yashrus hamachshava, her attachment and commitment to all of the Messiah that she learned. She lived with it in spite of the fact that everyone around her, or many around her, did not live that way. V'yom hamavis miyom hivoldai. And the day that a person dies is better than the day that they were born. The Medrash on that pasuk in Kehalis explains that many times people, when a child is born, everybody's excited and very happy. When somebody leaves this world at the end of their life, everybody is sad. Says the Medrash, loikeinu. It's not that way. When a person is born, is a time not to be happy. We don't know how the person's life is going to be. Will there be a life of tzidkis or a life of not tzidkis? What's there to be happy about? But when a person leaves this world fulfilling their tafkid, fulfilling what they were sent here in their mission, and they accomplished it, that's a time to be happy. Mashal l'shnei sfinais. It's a mashal to two boats that were by the dock. One boat was leaving and one boat was coming into the dock. The boat that was leaving had a whole cheers and fanfare of people there cheering them on as they were leaving away from the dock. But there was nothing going on special for the ship that was coming into dock. And there was a pikeach that was standing there and said that tzchiluf advarim, it's the opposite. When a boat leaves the dock, we don't know what they're going to entail, what's going to come their way, what kind of storms will be. Will they survive the trip? That's not a time to be happy, but when they come back b'shalom, so that's a time to be misameach at the accomplishments that were there. And so too by a human being, at the end of a life when it was rich with so much hashpah, with so much accomplished, so much that was brought to the new generation here in America of Messiah that she carried with her so strong. There was no question about it. But she learned from her parents, and she would say it over from the name of her parents, lessons of life. They were like the Aseres Hadibrais for her. It was Chayk Val Yavor. There was no budging and no pushing around on it. There's nothing negotiable when it comes to Messiah. And that was something that she imparted to her children, that she was able to see generations of Eiskim B'Torah Mitzvahs, Altaris HaKodesh L'fi the Messiah. And that was their success, to be able to mashpia on so many people in their community. The Rebbeinu Shalom should give her a liftigig in Gan Eden. We should have the zechronus of all the memories and all the lessons that she taught us. On behalf of myself and the community, we want to ask Mechila if we perhaps didn't give the proper covet, especially in the later years when she wasn't feeling well, the covet that she deserved. And may she be a melitza yasher for mishpacha, for the entire family, the entire community of Klal Yisrael. Tia nishmasa tzrura b'tzrura chayim.
Toby Twersky is a cousin. Ach Karev, somebody who's very close to Mashriga and to the family. Rav Kal Chasidim, asking to say Dibei Hesped.
The long, dark, cold nights of the winter represent our long, dark, cold gullus. In the long, dark, cold winter, the Rebbeinu Shalom provides us with the Neiros Chanukah to shed some light into the darkness. to supply some warmth into the cold. It comes Zois Chanukah, the 8th day of Chanukah, and the Lech Telech go out, and we're left in the dark and the cold. Similarly, the Rebbeinu Shalom, throughout the dark, long, cold Golus, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us unique Lech Telech to keep us warm, to provide the light. Lech Telech such as Toby Twersky. And as our Lech Telech of our menorah, of our Chanukah menorah flickered and went out, leaving us in the dark and in the cold, so also the Lech Telech, that it was keeping us warm, it was providing us light in this Golus, flickered and went out, leaving us in the dark and the cold of Golus. However, just like it is with Chanukah, the purpose of Chanukah is to take the messages of Chanukah, to take it with us into the rest of the winter, so that we can somehow tap into it, and that should continue warming us, providing us light, even after the Lech Telech go out. Same applies to the Ner Neshama. Of the Rebbetzin. There's so much to learn from her life. So many messages so many lessons that she taught us. Things that we can take with us into the cold and into the darkness of the Golus. To be mechazik ourselves. There's a Chassam Sofer in Parshas Chayesara, where the Chassam Sofer goes through Eishes Chayil. He points out that Eishes Chayil really is divided into 5 virtues. He says, Eishes Chayil, as we know from Chazal, was the hesped that Avraham Avinu gave and his wife Sarah. And the 5 virtues that Avraham Avinu pointed out was, number 1 was Botach Bol Leiv Bala. Her husband was able to trust her, entrust her. The second was Hoisa Kanya Soicher. Sarah Imenu was the one that brought the Parnasa into the home, so that Avraham Avinu should be able to conduct his Avodas HaKodesh. The third, says the Chassam Sofer, was Kappa Parsa La'ani. She stretched out her palm to give to the poor. She was a balas tzedakah. The fourth was Leisira Levesa Mishala Ki Chavesa Lav Shanim. She took care of the home to make sure that everything was clean, everything was taken care of. The children were taken care of. And finally, he says, Chassam Sofer, the fifth category, the fifth virtue was Pia Pascha B'Chachma. She spoke with tremendous wisdom. I don't think anyone matches these five virtues to the T as much as Rebbe Twersky. Botach bo lev bala. You remember the times. Unfortunately, I only remember her husband, the Rebbe, when he wasn't well, and how she took care of him. She never left his side. She was such an ibig gegeben a wife. Such Getreischaft, such ibig gegebenkeit. The Batach Bolev Bala was on such a high degree. She brought the parnasa into the home. And as Rabbi Newman pointed out, it was an oifen of kol kevuda vas melech penima. Yet she was matzliach so that her husband can be totally involved in the avodas hakodesh. I was Rebbe Twersky after her husband was nifter after the shul Lev Sameach, after it closed down. They had a chelka in Waldheim Cemetery, and she asked me to take care of it from then on. And so when members of the Lev Sameach shul passed away, they would call me. The family would call me to take care to arrange the burial. The ahava, the love and the respect that they had for the Rebbetzin. I'm not even talking about the Rebbe. The Rebbetzin had played such a tremendous role in the shul. I didn't know the shul while it was open, but I was able to tell from speaking to them as Balam that he has such a connection, such a tremendous shaykhs. Kappa Parsa Ani, the amount of tzedakah that she gave. She was a Sanza Einigo. Sanzaru was known for his hazronas, for the amount he used to distribute to the Aniyim. She was such a proud Sanza Einigo. As Rabbi Newman mentioned, she held on to that Asoida and everything that came along with it. Laisira levesa misholag, kichalvesa lavushanim. She was a balabusta. We walked into the house. It was malchusdik. It was regal. She raised children, Zera Berach Hashem, children in Einiklach. She loved so much. She spoke with such nachas about her children, her grandchildren. And they in turn had such respect for her. And finally, Pia Pascha B'Chachma. It was such a pleasure just to be there with her and hear her words of wisdom, words from the Altaheim, words that she heard from her parents, from her grandparents. Her outlook at life. As Rabbi Newman mentioned, she wasn't interested in what everybody else was doing. She had her blick, her understanding, her yashris of life and what it's about. these lessons will continue to shine the light into the long, dark night of Gullus. These lessons will continue to warm us in the cold of Gullus. Rebbetzin, I want to ask you, Mechila, for myself, for my family. We could have and should have been there more for you. I ask you to please be meichel us. Tehei nishmas atzruda b'tzra rachayim, u'bila malas netzach, u'malach Hashem dima mi'al kol pam.
I'm actually going to be saying two Espedim tonight, which is a little odd, but first going to say a Hesped of my sister-in-law, Mrs. Rabinowitz. She asked me to say some words that she wrote as a kavod achron to her mother. And then I'm going to speak for my part of the family. I'll start with her Hesped first. Very hard for me to say, but as a kavod achron, I want to speak to you, Mommy. Please do not tell me to fadrei minish kankap. I would like everyone here to have a small window into the life that my special mother led. When you left the churban of Europe without your father, the Grib of Arav, Shamin Kamdamai, you matured at a very quick speed. I remember hearing many stories of your youth, from the time you were designated to distribute stock in Gribib every Friday, to the amount you help you gave your mother at a very young age when you left Poland, when you were in Siberia, when you came to America. I remember the lesson you taught me when you told me about the journey on the boat coming to America. When the boat began rocking, your mother, my grandmother, the Grib of the Rebbetzin, made a deal with the Rebbeinu Shloim. If the family survived, she would make sure that they would stay true to Torah and Yerushalayim. Mommy, you exceeded all expectations. You came to Chicago as a newlywed, with Chicago not being what it is today. You helped our father build Lev Sameach, from standing on Brimwell Avenue asking people to join the Minyan, to running the sisterhood, to teaching in the Hebrew school, and doing many other functions as a Rebbetzin. When Parnassa was tight, you ran a travel business, going downtown in the freezing cold and the deep snow and the boiling hot, even going on Motzei Shabbos. You and Daddy were a team. When our father, Zecher Levracha, fell ill, you were at his side throughout, taking care of him Yom V'Layla. I stood there with you, watching as you never stopped. I was never sure where you got the kayach from. Your needs always seemed to be secondary. When I went through the most difficult time ever, you were always there for me. You gave me emotional strength and financial help. From your actions, I just knew how much you loved me. And after our father's patir, it was an honor for me to be at your home before work and after, to have you at my Shabbos table every week. We looked forward all week for you to come and be with us on Shabbos, bringing us some goodies and always lots of fruit. You sat at our table and always told us how to live, how to behave like princesses, and to how to continue your legacy. Most of all, we all enjoyed going to your room on Shabbos morning and drinking coffee and schmoozing. My daughters and I have no clue how we will continue without you. I never had time to ask you, Mechila, for the angst I caused you as a child. I never had time to ask you, Mechila, for all the times we had differences. I did not ask Mechila for all the times when you were sick, and I could not give you what you wanted the most to make your life comfortable, but we did what we thought was your best interest. I want to ask you personally, Mechila, for it all. On behalf of myself and my daughters and my entire family, I want to ask you, Mechila Gemura, for all. But you should rest assured that I will try b'li neder to follow in your footsteps of Torah and Yerushalayim. I will b'li neder try to continue to instill in my children, your grandchildren, and my grandchildren who are your great-grandchildren, all the values that you held so dear. I will try to continue your legacy of kindness and giving. And I will try b'li neder to give you the ultimate kavod achron by making you proud. The family wants to thank all the good friends for the amount of caring and checking that was done. Specifically, I want to mention Dr. Irv Birnbaum, who would walk out to West Rogers Park to visit with my shviga, our neighbors, Mrs. Chani Cohn, Mrs. Eileen Levy, Mrs. Nurit Nablach, and Mrs. Judy Silber, who all went out of their way always to make sure that my mother-in-law never felt forgotten. My mother-in-law was blessed with Arichas Yamim. But we all know a person gets up in years and a lot of people are forgotten. Her friends were no longer here. She had very, very few friends left. And people came to listen, to be mechabed her, to schmooze with her. And she was blessed, Baruch Hashem, with a very acute mind, a very sharp mind. And she really enjoyed those visits. Kodesh Baruch Hu should repay you all. We want to thank Dr. Zarat for his time, his care, his expertise, and his concern. I want to thank the staff of St. Francis Hospital for the gentle and respectful care that was given to our mother. The entire staff gave our mother the care that she would have given to her own mother and grandmother. I want to especially thank Reggie, who came and spent time with my mother-in-law and tried in every way to make her comfortable in a time when she was really going through terrible Yisurim. Mommy, I will miss you for the rest of my life. Now some comments from our part of the family. The Masmidim so far both spoke about the Psukim in Eshes Chayil, specifically Rabbi Twersky. Let's focus on the word Eshes Chayil means. So what's Eshes Chayil? So Chayil is related to somebody of strength, a person of valor, bravery, person who's resourceful. I think all of those things can be said about my shviga. She had a tremendous gevura, tremendous strength. My shviga went through, as it says in the Zohar, that every yid has membez masayis. Every yid goes through 42 different masayis in their life. My shviga started her life as an innocent Hasidic girl in a small town in Galicia. 9 years later, her life was completely overturned. Her father stayed behind. He was the Rav of the city. He would not leave. And his life was taken, a Kiddush Hashem in Treblinka. She survived with her mother and her siblings who were deported to Siberia and spent many hard years there. And afterwards coming to America through many difficult Gilgulim, coming to America as penniless refugees. And not long after that, my shviga married, came to Chicago, which was a completely different world. Talking about Chicago in the 1950s. Shviga would say when she came to Chicago in those years, I think there were less than 20 women who wore sheitlach, who covered their hair. And yet, as the Maspidim said, she never lost sight and never lost her connection with where she came from. You spoke to her 30 and 40 and 50 years after she was in Chicago, she still had those same values. She still had that same loyalty and truth to where she came from. She never lost her bearings. And yet, for those people, and there are a lot of people here who are probably old-timers in Chicago who knew her, she was with it. She was a cosmopolitan person. She was a chevraman. She was able to take care of things. She was able to conduct business very successfully. She was able to relate to the members of her shul, many of whom were multi-generational Americans, people who really had no musig of her world. And she was able to bring the greatest beauty in Yiddishkeit. And that's why, as Rabbi Twersky said, those people who, and I could say that's my experience all the time. If I ever, people go to all kinds of places in Chicago, you meet people, and they say, oh, I remember I was in Yeshver Shul. I have such fond memories of it. And it was always about the Rav and the Rebbitzin and the Rebbitzins Kiddush and all the fun things that went on in the shul and all the chiyas that went on in the shul. It's hard to believe today. We think about Lav Sameach. It's many, many years since it's gone. But again, that was her tremendous strength. She never missed a beat. One would think that after all these years of tremendous investment that she made in the shul, it was over. It was over. Lav Sameach is already not here for a lot of years. She never missed a beat. She went on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And what really kept her going was her fierce love and loyalty for her family. Every yontif without fail, including this yontif when she went to surgery, she always made sure to send money to Eretz Yisrael. And she had a long list of kravim that she kept in touch with. And then when I say kravim, I'm talking about second, third, fourth cousins who she felt very, very connected to. Some of them, the connection went back to the days in Europe, like the Chakava family and so on in Yerushalayim. She had a tremendous loyalty to them. And of course, to her closer children and her grandchildren, her loyalty was without end. Her loyalty, her kindness, her concern. For the times that she spent in our house, she'd wake up in the morning, she would say, Avram Shimon, come in here, I have to talk to you. What are we doing about this for this child? What are we doing about this for that child? It was always on her mind. And I would say, Mommy, it's okay. You're allowed. No, I can't sleep. I can't think. I can't eat. I can't. It's always about my children. And everybody returned the love and the respect and the honor. And for us, it was a tremendous chus to have a Babi who was really the crown of our family in the last 20 years after my Shver Zechron Avrocha was nifter. And as was said, she was Batoch Bolev Bala. She was the right hand and the left hand of my Shver in so many different ways. She was the foreign minister. She was the outgoing personality, but she had this strength, this tremendous chayil and resourcefulness. She was able to solve problems. She was able to figure out a way to make parnasa. When they came to Chicago, she was the one who figured out how to find a place to live. They had to rent a room because they didn't have money to pay rent for an apartment. They had to rent a room in somebody else's house. And she figured it out. She figured out how to get furniture. She was a person who today we would call a survivor, but it wasn't just that she was a survivor. She was a person with tremendous mission. For us, for the Mullers, this is a tremendous Aveda. Bobby was a very big part of our life. And it's going to be a very big void, a very, very big void. As the Welt says, that when there's nobody at the head of the table, that's when you really feel the void. For us, we never thought it would be over. As much as we knew that the situation was so grave, it happened so suddenly today, we weren't ready. We really weren't ready. And for my wife, who was so devoted to her mother, and for myself and my children, who had the tremendous zechiyah of seeing her and being able to bask in her warmth, this is going to be a tremendous, tremendous blow that's going to take us a long time to overcome. And as my sister-in-law said, it's Hashem, we hope that my mother-in-law, together with my shver, from the Lichtige Gan Eden, will be able to look down at the family and see that they succeeded, that they can come back and say to her mother, to her grandfathers, and to who further back, Lamal Bakodesh, to her great ancestors, to say, I did my shlichus, I went through very rough seas, and it came in completely unscathed. My ship returned to port, as Rabbi Newman said. Shalom, shalom b'tayrasa, shalom b'gufa, shalom b'mamayna, that she really came back with everything that she was given the kaichas to do, and she really truly fulfilled her mission. It's also correct and in place for me to ask mechila for myself, for my wife, and for my children. We dealt with my shviga at very close quarters. And naturally, when you live so close to people, you're not able to always give them the kavod haroi. At least we don't succeed in giving the kavod haroi. There were many decisions that we had to make on her behalf, and we mispalel that they were the right decisions. And we knew that Mommy loved us, and we loved her. And we tried to do everything in the best way for her. And we asked Mommy, you should be meichel us if we made mistakes, but we didn't try hard enough. And Yitzhak Hashem should be Melitza Yosher for everybody in the Mishpacha and for the entire Kehillah. I'm saying Menucha Nechayna Al Kanfei Yashechina. The Malois Kedoshim Tahirim Kezaya Haraki Yamazhirim Es Nishmas Marichami Taiva Basra Baruch Shalcha La'ilama Avur Shanachnu Mispalim V'Noidim V'Linedet Tzedak About Azkaras Nishmasa Began Eden Tehei Menuchasa Lochem Balarachamim Yastireha V'Seisek Nafav Le'ilamim V'yitzrar b'yitzrar achayim es nishmasa Adonai hu nachalasa v'sanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'neimar amen.
This concludes the Levaya here. There's going to be a Levaya in Borough Park at Sherman Das tomorrow around 3 o'clock. Then the Aron will go there to Israel. The Levaya will be Wednesday evening, probably around 6 p.m. at Har Zaysim. Then we're going to update our website once we know when the family comes back, and Shiva is going to be here in Chicago.